2 welcome mats, 1 decision at 1 a.m. I photograph apartments for a living, which is another way of saying I enter rooms that don't know me and try to make them look like they're ready for love. Twilight shoots pay extra, so the building manager handed me 2 keys and said, 6A and 6B, same floor, same welcome mats. Don't mix them up, Ethan. He laughed like destiny is a labeling problem. I pocketed both keys and told him I don't believe in destiny, just reflections. My wife, Grace, says I'm at my best when I'm arranging things that don't belong to us, pillows, plants, horizon lines, because then I remember how to look. She's not wrong. We've been married 8 years, which means we can tell the difference between silence and comfort, and we've recently been practicing the kind that isn't a weapon. Still, I take late jobs when the kitchen feels too neat to hold an argument. The car forgives everything unless it stains. 6th-floor elevator doors opened like a polite mouth. The corridor smelled faintly of laundry and lemon cleaner, the perfume of places preparing to pretend. 2 identical mats faced each other in the middle of the hall, black script on coir. Welcome, a courtesy and a dare. 6B was my assignment, but 6A had a line of light under the door and the soft staccato of someone walking barefoot, the sound of decisions trying to be quiet. I set my bag at 6B, propped it with a camera case then, against the part of me that loves control, knocked on 6A. The door opened to a woman who looked like she just stepped out of a conversation with herself. Dark hair collected at the back of her head like she'd done it while thinking about something else. Bare feet, soft sweater, a ring with a pale circle of skin beneath it, as if it had made its own moon. "Hi," she said. "This is either great timing or an omen. Which are you?" "Photographer," I said, lifting the camera by the strap. "6B next door." I nodded at the twin mats. "I have a healthy respect for signage, but these don't help." She smiled, the kind you don't wear for the internet. "I'm Valerie, and I'm about to make a heroic decision to change a smoke detector battery without a ladder, unless you intervene." "I can intervene," I said, because ladders and I are on speaking terms. "I have a folding stool in the car. I can also take criticism if your ceiling disapproves." "Perfect. Rescue me from standing on an unstable chair and the story I'll have to tell in the ER." Inside, her apartment had the calm of someone who pays attention. Books stacked in hopeful columns, a plant trusted with more water than most relationships, a candle that smelled like pears and restraint. The smoke detector blinked its tiny, relentless request. "Married?" she asked, nodding at my ring as I climbed. "Very, Grace. We collect mugs we don't need and promises we're trying to keep." "Same," Valerie said, turning her own ring with a thumb. "Daniel, he returns the cart. He's in Phoenix until Friday, arguing with a supply chain about the definition of now." She tried to smile. "I was about to text someone I shouldn't about a rooftop I shouldn't. Then the smoke detector started beeping like a conscience." I replaced the battery and the room exhaled. It's astonishing how much noise you don't notice until it stops. I stepped down, and the stool creaked the way wood does when you ask it to be braver than it was sold for. "Thank you," she said. "Tea, or a thank you pear candle. They were on sale because whoever named them went too hard." "Tea is perfect," I said. "Nomming is hard." While the kettle considered its identity, her phone lit the counter with messages from a contact labeled by a single initial. "Rooftop. 1 a.m. Don't make me say please." Another. "You're not going to be married forever in your head." She flipped the phone face down with the decisiveness of a person refusing a dare. "You don't have to explain that to me," I said. "I know," she said, "but I'm going to explain it to myself, and you're on the premises." She poured water over Mint like an argument cooling. Sometimes I want a new mirror more than I want a new view. That's all. I get it, I said. Sometimes I want to be photographed by someone who doesn't love me, because then I'm certain they're not embellishing. That is the most photographer answer, she said, and we both laughed in the safe place two strangers create when they agree to be only strangers. She handed me a mug. Our fingers didn't touch. That felt like a discipline and a defeat. We stood by the window, watching the street hold its breath between traffic lights. Valerie traced condensation with a fingertip, drawing and erasing the same small circle, a private ritual. If you're here to make 6B look honest, she said, does that mean you know how to make lies look natural? I help rooms tell their best version of the truth, I said. Sometimes that means hiding the laundry basket just out of frame. And in people. In people I can only hold the reflector, I said. They still decide where to stand. She nodded, a small surrender. Daniel and I made a spreadsheet called Someday Last Winter, she said. It has columns like France, baby, backyard. We keep moving the dates rightward like we're playing gentle Tetris with our lives. She took a sip. I'm good at being reliable. I want to be desired. I'm good at being useful, I said. I want to be chosen on purpose. There are moments that arrive like a question with only two answers and neither is multiple choice. Valerie set her mug down and stood closer, not close enough to touch, close enough to change the math. The pear candle made the air warmer than necessary. Outside, a car alarm tried to audition for significance and failed. Someone should tell us to stop, she said, and it sounded like an invitation handed to a lifeguard. I'll volunteer, I said, not because I'm a hero, because I've been the villain and the extra sleeps better. She smiled, grateful and annoyed. You're annoyingly intact, she said. I was counting on the kind of man who thinks refusing temptation is a personality. I'm the kind of man who wants to make pancakes at rude hours, I said, and who forgets to buy mint until someone reminds him. She laughed. It broke and remade the mood. She took a small step back. Okay, she said, let me pay you in truth. When I said I almost texted someone, I mean I did. He's probably in the lobby or already stood there and got bored. He makes me feel like a room with windows facing east. He also checks his reflection in every stainless steel surface. Daniel looks at me in them. That should be enough. Tonight it almost was. Thank you for saying that out loud, I said. Sometimes not doing the thing still needs a witness. She nodded. And you, what are you not doing tonight? Not calling a woman from work who thinks I'm the kind of man who should be softer than I am, I said. Not writing a text that looks like a joke and reads like a password. Not leaving 6B staged perfectly while I neglect to unstage the kitchen at home. Grace sounds lucky. I'm lucky, I said. She knows how to be frank without being cruel. It's terrifying and hot. We finished our tea like people finishing a small performance they decided to call practice. I folded the stool and carried it to the door. At the threshold, the two mats waited like a moral and its footnote. Valerie touched the edge of 6A's mat with her toes and looked at me the way you look at a person walking toward weather. Ethan, she said, thank you for being the kind of stranger who leaves before the plot twist. Plots are overrated, I said. Outcomes are built out of small exits. In 6B, the rooms behave the way empty rooms do. Well, I arranged pillows, angled a lamp, opened the blinds to the city the way a host opens a door. I shot the kitchen twice because countertops lie best at certain angles. A message from Grace arrived. You still out? I'll leave the porch light. Mint is on the top shelf if you want tea when you're back. I wrote, coming home. Save me a corner of the blanket. Then, as if the night were giving extra credit for honesty, I added, I want to tell you something small before it gets big. She responded with a heart that didn't try too hard. On my way out, 6A's door stood open a fraction. Valerie leaned against the jamb, phone in one hand, forehead resting on the wood like she was listening to the grain. He texted downstairs, she said when she saw me. I wrote upstairs is taken. Then I put my phone on the counter like a hot pan. Do you need me to stand in the hall like a security system with a stool? I asked. No, she said, and smiled with a bravery that didn't need applause. I'm going to text Daniel and ask if he can talk, now or in the morning, without making it a siren. I'm going to tell him the truth in the tense called doing. That tense looks good on people, I said. She pressed a boxed candle into my hand. For grace, or for kitchens that need help smelling like a choice. The elevator took me down with the relief of a scene change. In the lobby, a man with a scarf and the posture of someone who reads reviews of himself checked his reflection in the glass and frowned at the building for not being more impressed. He looked at me like he was waiting for a line. I didn't have one. The door slid open and he stayed frozen, a paused thought. Outside, the air had the thin chill of a city that prefers secrets to weather. I put the candle on the passenger seat and drove with the window cracked, letting the night be more honest than the scent. At the third red light, I remembered the quiet after the smoke detector stopped and thought, maybe a life is built from batteries you replace before the beeping makes you reckless. At home, the porch light kept its promise. Grace was on the couch under the blanket, hair up, the remote abandoned like a tool after a better idea. She looked at me the way you look at something you bought for practicality and discovered you loved. Hi, she said. You look like a man who chose stairs. Elevator, actually, I said, setting the candle on the table. But I resisted a rooftop. She raised an eyebrow, the elegant punctuation of our marriage. Do I need tea? Mint, I said, top shelf. We made tea and I told her the small thing before it got big, and she told me a small thing back. A coworker who had started using her name like a brand new word, a laugh she'd enjoyed too much and then felt ashamed of, the way she'd turned that enjoyment into a grocery list and walked it off. We didn't perform absolution. We did inventory. It felt like love in a language we hadn't spoken out loud since the year we moved in. Later in the quiet, I sent the building manager the photos from 6B with a note about 6A's smoke detector. He wrote back a thank you and a smiley that looked tired. I put my phone face down, not as a gesture, but as a habit I want to like myself for. Grace slid closer, her toes finding my ankle like a homing device. Tomorrow, she said into the dark, let's buy a ladder. For the apartment, I asked. For the tense called doing, she said. I like the view from there. And I thought of two welcome mats, one mine and one not, and how sometimes the difference between them is only a decision you make when the kettle boils. I fell asleep wanting pancakes at a rude hour, the kind you eat with someone who knows the map of your exits and stands by each door with a light.